Emily stood in the middle of her living room, breathing in deeply the scent of fresh paint and the hope that permeated the walls of her new apartment. After years of moving between small rented flats, she had finally found this gem in the heart of the bustling city. The apartment was on the third floor of an old building with unique architectural character, its windows overlooking a lively street, and its small balcony promising quiet mornings with a cup of coffee. Emily had moved in a week ago, spending her days unpacking boxes and arranging the simple furniture she owned. She felt an overwhelming sense of peace, as if she had finally found her place. Lately, peace hadn't been a loyal friend to Emily. The memory of a faint sound, like a strange moan, had echoed in her ears from time to time, as if coming from deep within the floor beneath her feet. In the first few days, everything was normal. She heard faint sounds from neighboring apartments, children's laughter from below, soft music from the side, and the shuffle of footsteps in the hallway. These sounds comforted her, reminding her that she wasn't alone, and that she was part of a new community. One evening, as she returned from work, she saw a kind elderly woman coming out of the apartment directly opposite hers, carrying a bag of groceries. Emily smiled warmly at her and said, "Hi, I'm Emily. I just moved into the apartment across the hall." The elderly woman looked at her with a strange expression, her eyes a little wide, and her lips trembling slightly. "Welcome, dear," she said in a faint, almost whispered voice, "but no one lives there." Then she quickly walked away, leaving Emily bewildered. What does she mean no one lives there? Emily thought. Maybe the woman misunderstood her, or perhaps she was talking about something else entirely. Emily dismissed the strange comment and entered her apartment, but the words continued to echo in her mind. The next day, while waiting for the elevator, Emily met a young man in his 20s who seemed to live on the ground floor. He was carrying a skateboard and seemed friendly. Emily smiled and said, "Good morning, I'm Emily. I just moved to the third floor, apartment 3B. The young man looked at her with a blank expression, then slowly shook his head. "Third floor, apartment 3B?" he said, frowning. "But that apartment has been empty for years. No one lives there." Then he entered the elevator, leaving Emily feeling visibly worried this time. This was no coincidence. Twice, from two different people. Emily felt a chill run down her spine. Was there something wrong with the apartment? Was it haunted? But she hadn't felt anything unusual. The sun was shining in the morning, the windows were wide, and the air was filled with warmth. There was no feeling of unease or fear. Emily tried to find a logical explanation. Maybe these neighbors didn't know everything about the building. Perhaps the apartment had been vacant for a long time, and they hadn't noticed her moving in yet. That was the most logical explanation, wasn't it? That night, as Emily watched a movie, she heard a faint sound coming from the wall shared with the adjacent apartment. It was a soft scratching sound, like fingernails on wood. She stopped watching the movie and listened. The sound stopped. She thought it might be a mouse or something similar. She resumed watching, but the sound returned again, this time a little closer and clearer. It sounded like a child scratching the wall. Emily flinched. She didn't have neighbors with children on that side. The neighbors she had met, the elderly woman and the young man, hadn't mentioned anything about children. In fact, she hadn't heard any children's voices coming from the adjacent apartment at all. Emily grew tense. Was this why the neighbors said the apartment was empty? Was there something this building was hiding? In the following days, Emily started noticing strange things. The lights would sometimes flicker in the middle of the night. She would hear faint whispers when she was alone, but they would immediately vanish when she tried to pinpoint their source. She felt an odd coldness in certain areas of the apartment, even on hot days. More importantly, the sounds from the neighboring apartments began to disappear. She no longer heard children's laughter, nor soft music, nor footsteps in the hallway. The entire apartment was enveloped in a profound silence, a very unsettling silence. Emily decided to confront the matter. She went down to the ground floor and rang the elderly woman's doorbell. After a few moments, the woman opened the door and looked at Emily with wide, frightened eyes. "Hello," Emily said, trying to sound normal. "I was just wondering, could you tell me why you said my apartment is empty? I live there. I moved in 2 weeks ago." The woman looked around nervously, then quickly pulled Emily inside and closed the door behind them. "My dear," the woman whispered, her eyes filled with fear, "you must leave that apartment. No one can live there." But why? Emily asked, as fear began to creep strongly into her. The elderly woman began to recount the story in a trembling voice. Many years ago, a family lived in that apartment. A husband, a wife, and a small child. The child was always crying and sounds would come from the walls. One night, they all disappeared. They left no trace. The police searched but found nothing. After that, many tried to live in the apartment, but no one could stay for more than a few weeks. They all complained of sounds and cold shadows. The apartment, it's uninhabited. Emily felt a shiver run down her spine. These were the sounds she had been hearing. This was why the walls were cold. But I hear sounds, scratching sounds and crying sometimes, Emily said in a faint voice. The elderly woman looked at her with eyes full of sorrow. They have returned to disturb anyone who tries to live there. They are looking for companionship. The child always cries because she wants to play. Emily rushed out of the elderly woman's apartment and returned to her own. Every corner of it looked different now. She no longer felt peace, but rather fear and apprehension. The sounds she had been hearing, the whispers, the scratches, everything made sense now. These were not the sounds of neighbors, but the sounds of other residents, unseen residents. That night, Emily couldn't sleep. Every movement outside her window, every shadow on the wall, every sigh in the cold air made her jump. The sounds were stronger this time. They were no longer whispers but clear sighs and scratching sounds on the walls, as if something was trying to get out. Then she heard the clear sound of a small child crying. Not a faint cry, but a sharp scream. Emily leaped out of bed, her heart pounding violently. She grabbed her phone, about to call the police, but stopped. What would she say? There are ghosts in my apartment? No one would believe her. The sounds began to intensify, and the child's screams grew louder and more unsettling. Emily felt an intense coldness envelop the room, even though the heating was on. A faint shadow appeared on the wall opposite her bed, a small shadow, resembling a child's silhouette. Emily backed into a corner of the room, her eyes fixed on the shadow. She began to recite the prayers she remembered. The louder her voice became, the more the shadow seemed to recede slightly. But the child's screaming intensified. Suddenly, the bedroom door slowly opened, as if an invisible force was pushing it. No one was behind the door. Emily felt a very cold draft of air pass by her, as if something unseen had brushed past her. You are not alone here. A cold voice whispered in her ear, as if speaking from inside her head. In that moment, Emily made her decision. She could no longer stay here. The apartment was not a safe place nor a haven of peace as she had thought. It was a prison for unseen entities who wanted her as their companion. At dawn the next day, as the sun began to rise, Emily rushed out of the apartment. She didn't bother collecting her valuables or anything else. She left the doors wide open behind her and ran nonstop until she reached her car. She drove away from that building and never looked back. A few days later, the police checked on the building after reports from neighbors about open doors and a deserted apartment. They found Emily's apartment completely empty, with the furniture intact, as if she had vanished into thin air. They tried to search for her but found no trace. As for the wooden panel in the floor of the house, it was back in its place, securely closed, as if nothing had happened. Emily couldn't sleep that night, nor the nights that followed. Every time she tried to convince herself that it was just a hallucination, the sound would return, fainter than before. But it was still there, deep within the darkness, hidden beneath her house. A sound of crying, or perhaps a faint giggle from a child who was no longer innocent. One day, Emily disappeared. She left her house open, and her teacup was still on the table, warm as if she had just left seconds before. As for the wooden panel in the house's floor, it had completely vanished. Was the story a dream? Or is there something beneath that house? Something still searching for a new victim? And what do you think? Was what happened to Emily just a dream? Or is there a secret that has been buried for years and is starting to surface again? Share your opinion in the comments and don't forget, if you felt scared by the story, hit the like button, Subscribe to the channel to get all new mysterious and terrifying content, and if you dare, share the story with your friends. Let's find out who among you will dare to live in apartment 3B.